Evidence points to us all around the world needing more copper. Are we going to get it? And of course, the big question is, where are we going to get it from? We know about the economic rebound. We know about the stimulus package that's just been enacted in the States, $1.9 trillion. That's going to need a lot of copper. We already know that China is a big area of copper demand. And of course, as we go into electrification, changing the way we drive around the world, we're going to need more copper because we're going to need to get that electricity network up and running to such a degree to help us in our quest for more electrification. So what about the copper market? Well, we're talking now to a company that has majored in copper, but it also has other metals under its belt as well. We're talking now to Michael Billing. He's the chief executive of London and Sydney listed Thor Mining. Mick, it's great to be able to catch up with you. Thanks indeed for your time. I know so far away from us here in London, it's great to be able to speak to people as we can online during this time at the moment. I want to get your thoughts, first of all, on the copper market. I want to talk about Thor and its context with copper and other metals in a moment. But tell us more about copper and its importance.
Yeah, sure, Jeremy, and thanks for the opportunity. Copper, well, you've summarised the copper market beautifully. It's a huge market, about 25 million tonnes a year, give or take a bit, and growing. At an ever increasing rate. I've been in the copper industry on and off now since the mid 70s with Bougainville Copper and Western Mining's Olympic Dam operation, both very large copper producers. And so I've been a bit of a student of the industry for quite some time. The demand for copper has never stopped growing in almost anybody's memory, other than short-term hiccups with the crises here and there. And the demand for copper appears to have taken a step change with what's happening with the electrification of vehicles, etc. Along with that, China is insatiable. India and Africa are growing. People in India and Africa have better spending capacity than they had, say, 20 or 30 years ago. They all want a mobile phone, they all want a refrigerator, air conditioning. All these things need copper. I think we are in for another several years, possibly with hiccup here and there along the way, but for several years of very high copper demand, and the world will need more.
To what degree do you think are we currently under-resourced? Do you see much deficit going ahead in terms of what we've got in the market at the moment? As we've just said, with demand picking up, supply has got to keep along with that. It doesn't seem to me at the moment to be the case. To what degree are we under-resourced?
Well, I think, Jeremy, we and a whole bunch of others are trying to get in place over the next 2 to 5 years, a whole bunch of small to medium copper operations, and that's a good thing to do. But the rate the copper demand appears to be growing at, there's several giant copper operations around the world, a relatively limited number, producing several 100,000 tonnes of copper a year. We're going to need 2 or 3 of those a year extra to come on stream, and nobody's discovering those really big deposits right now. So I think those of us who will make the small and medium increments to the supply, great thing to do, but we'll have a lot of trouble keeping up with the demand. I really do.
Yeah, let's take a look at the copper price on the London Metals Exchange. We're just trading around about the $9,000 per tonne level, 89.58 to be precise. We've come a long way from the lows that we saw back in 2020 last year. And what is going on here with the copper price in the context of where we could well end up? Because clearly that there is potential on the upside for the copper price. Do you think there is much more upside given what we've just said?
Metal prices swing too far one way and then too far the other. I think and we've almost doubled since the low point of about this time last year, I guess. And I think it would be fair to say that the drop down to about $4,500 a tonne was perhaps a little bit of an overreaction. And I don't remember what the contango was for copper pricing back then, but it was probably fairly reasonable. having said that, I don't think the upswing has yet reached the stage where we're in overreaction territory. This is a very nice copper price for those who are producing. I don't think anybody who's in production right now and making copper is complaining about the copper price. But if we go back to the fundamentals that we talked about a few moments ago, I suspect, $10,000 US for copper in the next year or two is not out of the realms. Now, I'm not an economist or a professional forecaster, but I think the world sounds like it needs more copper, is acting like it needs more copper, and they're going to struggle to find that copper. So the price will go up. It has to.
Absolutely. Look, we take your point about the fact you're not an analyst in the sector, but of course it's interesting to hear your viewpoint because you are someone that's trying to organize a company around this. I know that you have interests outside of copper in other metals, but what does all this mean for you as the chief executive of a small cap mining company? What are the opportunities as you see them, given what we've just been talking about?
For a small company like us that does have copper resources, and we do, if we talk about the resource we've got in the joint venture that we're farming into at Alford, and via the company we've invested in, EnviroCopper and their projects, we've got exposure to a bit over 400,000 tonnes of copper in the ground in existing JORC compliant resources. And in all cases, that will grow. Our challenge has to be while the prices are where they are, to get on with the job as quickly as we can to get into production while the copper price is high. I think we've got a bit of time of high prices, but we don't need to waste the opportunity by taking our time about this.
Let me just bring up a share price, the London listed share price of Thor Mining, where we're currently trading 0.849 on the London exchange. This represents around about 15 million pound worth of market capitalization. I take what you say about the outlook for copper, but as I said, you're not just copper, are you? You are other metals. Copper plays in very nicely into the electrification, as we've said. What other metals have you got in your portfolio or that you are working on that will continue to give you exposure in a market in what it is that we need in the 21st century?
I guess we started, Jeremy, as a tungsten-focused company, and tungsten's a commodity that where demand grows when world growth happens. And world growth hasn't happened much in the last couple of years, but we expect that will take off in the next little while, and we can see signs of that in the tungsten price. It's heading towards the direction we would like it to be. It's also a commodity that where about 75 or 80% of the global production is in China. If it's a critical mineral, as it is, and classified as such by the US, well, the US and China are speaking at one another at the moment rather than to one another. So, they would like to get some of their tungsten from sources other than China. Elsewhere, look, we've got some gold exploration assets, and the gold has its own dynamic, but we do have some uranium and vanadium assets in Colorado and Utah in the US. And that is, we think, quite a catalyst. The US is going very determinedly towards, particularly under the new administration, towards low carbon energy. Uranium fits in nicely with that. The US has established a fund to source domestically supplied uranium fuel for its nuclear power generation. Right now, they produce almost none of their own. It all comes from Canada, Australia, and Uzbekistan, I think, or Kazakhstan. So they want, but there's plenty of uranium in the US. And so that we think could be quite a catalyst for an uplift in our share price and for excitement in our stock in the next few months as we take on the maiden drilling program for that project in a couple of months' time.
I did say at the top that we were listed in London and also on the ASX on the Australian on the Australian exchange. But in the last couple of days, you've sent out an RNS on your aspirations for some sort of trading to get going in the States. You're on the over-the-counter markets there. You mentioned about your Colorado and Utah assets. To what degree was that the reason to go to the States in terms of a listing? Because, I mean, it costs money. You're a company that has limited resources, being a small cap business. What are the benefits in listing in the States?
I think, Jeremy, we've also got a tungsten project in the US, and by the way, it's the largest tungsten resource, JORC or 43101 compliant in the US. But the benefits of listing there, I think, it's a bit like if we were a company just listed on ASX. And we decided to also be listed in London. It's a much bigger market, a much bigger group of investors. You broaden your base for capital tremendously. When you go to New York, again you broaden it again, and perhaps taking another step up. Now OTC is not the Nasdaq. It's not the full exchange of the New York Stock Exchange. It's a subset, but it does give us exposure to another group of investors who may like our story, and hopefully they do, and who will find it easy to put money into and invest in our company if we're listed over there than if they've got to come to London or call a broker and do something in Australia.
What's your background? What's your board's background as well that gives you this ability to be able to capitalise on the opportunities as you see them in the metals markets?
Okay, I'm an accountant. If you go back far enough, it's probably some years now since I've done serious accounting work for a lot of people. I've been running companies of this nature for a little while, but I've been an accountant in the mining industry since the mid-1970s. We have a finance guy out of London, Mark Potter. Now, I think Mark's an engineer by training, but he's been working in finance for, I think, most of his adult life. And he's our London-based director. We also have a hugely experienced geologist in Australia, Mark McGough, on our board, and he's worked in some of our projects that we're looking at in previous lives. He's done some really exciting stuff in gold, in copper, and in molybdenum. So we're very lucky to have him. So a small board, but with a fairly broad range of background.
So you've got exposure to copper, gold, uranium, tungsten, a bit of vanadium. Look, you're across a lot of metals. Where do you hope to be by the end of the year? What is it do you think is going to be the standout thing that we should take away from what to watch for from Thor Mining?
Jeremy, there's a couple of things that could happen, but they're based on successful drill results. And we all know that in early stage drilling programs, you occasionally get an answer you don't want. We're very hopeful that we get an answer that we do want. However, what we do know, what we do have in our copper resources at Alford East and in the copper resources at Kapunda and Alford West, operated by Enviro Copper Limited, the company we've invested in, they have resources. They are all going through, or in two of those three, they are going through technical feasibility. By the end of this year, at least one of those, probably Kapunda, but not necessarily, will have gone through all the technical feasibility stage. It will demonstrate that everything works and will be in commercial feasibility. That's pretty exciting because that's a project that could then be in production within 18 months from then or thereabouts.
Okay. Exciting times for small cap miners, I know at the moment, especially those in base metals. Mick, look, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thanks indeed for your thoughts and guidance through how you see the markets developing. I'd certainly like to catch up with you again at the back end of the year if we possibly can, to take a look at how things are moving at Thor Mining, but certainly a stock to watch. Thanks indeed for joining us. That's Michael Billing. He's the Chief Executive of Thor Mining. For more videos from us here at IGTV, join us on Twitter at IGTV and subscribe to our YouTube channel.